Chapter 24. What happens when we apply the truth cipher to some consensus narratives? And I just want to add a note. I'm not going to add any comment to this chapter. It's a bit longer than usual. And I would like to launch an interview series podcast based on some we'll probably talk about these topics in greater depth. So this is just, I'm finishing up the book. There's just one chapter after this. So without further ado, here we go. And I'll just repeat the title again. Chapter 24, What Happens When We Apply the Truth Cipher to Some Consensus Narratives? Global warming. The climate change narrative needs us to operate purely in the mode of fear. It is an end-time science prophecy that demands our complete subjugation to the state savior. If we sacrifice our way of life, maybe we can avert disaster. In its most extreme versions, it requires that humanity view itself as a parasite, and I consider that the consensus universe would cease to exist if humans went extinct. While no one knows what will happen in the future, global warming saviors require our debasement and enslavement to deliver on their promise. Truth Cipher helps us detect that many are collectively harmed and sacrificed for the, quote, greater good. That effect is an indicator that this issue must be researched thoroughly before we acquiesce to these dubious solutions. Wars. Any force taken against another that is not in self-defense is violence, which is a transgression of morality. Security. Ramped-up security is always directed at us with a cover story of fighting terrorism. Why is it we are the ones who are policed even though we are not the perpetrators? Surveillance. Related to security, why is our privacy compromised when we are the ones who are said to be protected? The effect of living in a digital panopticon in fear is to police one's own thoughts. When you realize this is your reality and not theirs, you will question what business they have peering into our communications with the paternal excuse of security. We are sovereign adults. Taxes, and I'm going to read a quote by Lysander Spooner. If taxation without consent is not robbery, then any band of robbers have only to declare themselves a government, and all their robberies are legalized. And this is where I begin. We give our hard-earned treasure to the state on penalty of prison. We are coerced to fund abhorrent action. We pay for our enslavement. Gun control. I'm going to read a quote by Mark Passio. If there are no guns in your country, that means slavery was perfected there. And this is where I begin. Fear is used to make us grateful to our captors, who we're told protect us. Yet there is now ample media showing that these protectors murder us with impunity. A society where we assume responsibility for our own security might be no worse than the alternative. Immigration. Let's see. Megastates leave no say for real communities to decide who they welcome. No one should force anyone into your house. No one should force anyone into your community. Yet, when we see suffering, we should help people. Also, Truth Cipher reveals very uncomfortable truths where we realize our hypocrisy and complicity regarding this issue. For example, the European refugee crisis, I write this in 2017, was dramatically amplified by Western aggression that destabilized countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria. For Americans, we could revisit violent history of a country built on African slave labor and Native American genocide. This is not the place to detail the evils of statism, but I must mention it seems the only way out of these conundrums is to neuter the state and empower small communities. It does relate because we have made a case that our real responsibility in this life is to do as much good as we can within our actual sensory world. An autonomous small community could determine if they could accommodate immigrants. Chemtrails and geoengineering. Even if one discounted geoengineering whistleblowers and hundreds of public patents, Wikipedia itself, a major culprit in perpetuating a bad universe, says it's not understood why contrails persist for so long, blotting out the sun, which can affect temperature and crops. Truth Cipher says we must be concerned about this issue at any level of conspiracy. More so, in a multiverse, some are living in universes where this is benign, while on another end of the spectrum, others see trails as an ET conspiracy to genocide the planet. Yes, all are true. Truth Cypher says we must care at any level we can because trails are manifest in consensus reality and sensory reality. Not a single one leads to any good. At least we can start there. Carnism. Although eating meat is woven into the fabric of most people's consensus reality, the scale of suffering it incurs is impossible to reconcile with harm no beings. One can rationalize the issue quite compellingly, but one can never say no being suffered. It's very interesting that health is used as a convincing justification. One can find facts saying we need animal protein to be healthy and short-circuit the moral argument. However, we can also find true facts showing that we can survive and thrive if we eliminate meat altogether in favor of a plant-based diet. Using the Truth Cypher, it is unambiguous which reality's effects are causing less harm. Understandably, changing what we eat affects us fundamentally. It seems and feels very difficult to do. Choosing facts that support a carnist position is easier. I'm uninterested in evangelical veganism. Choosing and co-creating one's reality can only be done at the individual level. It cannot be coerced, for that would be violence according to the Truth Cypher. If one ascribes to one of the 7 occult hermetic principles laid out in the Kybalion about the fabric of reality, that all is polarity, we have a more nuanced way to view morality. Yes, there is right and there is wrong / good and evil. However, some evils are worse than others. For example, sucker punching someone is less evil than outright murdering them. Such it is with food. Vegetarians don't endorse the murder of animals, but yes, I'm vegetarian, not vegan, although I'm a lapsed vegetarian at the moment. We are complicit in the exploitation of animals for milk and eggs. In terms of the polarity of morality, it's certainly better than slaughter, but we are not absolved. No one gets it perfect. What's important is to recognize where we can do better and actually strive to do it. If we recognize we live in bad realities and need to stay in them, we are to blame.